Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 66. Well, it has been a relatively slow day on the news front as far as the mainstream media goes with the whole Jeffrey Epstein case. I have a few things that I'm working on the back burner. I'm going camping tomorrow night, and I'll be finishing up those said projects tomorrow night while camping, and I'll have them ready to go on Wednesday. So Wednesday night, I will have some, I don't know, I guess you would say exclusive type of reports. They're not going to be from the mainstream media. They're from my own research. Some things that I've uncovered, some connections between some of the players, some things that aren't being talked about in the mainstream media as much, some things that will be, I think they will be talked about in the mainstream media very soon. I mean, you're starting to see now, how long did it take for the mainstream media to start talking about the blackmail angle? So they're starting to catch on with that, and we've been talking about that since the very beginning. And it's the same with these other two things that I have going on. One of them has to do with Thomas Bowers, the alleged banker who supposedly gave Jeffrey Epstein loans from Deutsche Bank. And another one is, well, the other one I'll keep a secret until we get there on Wednesday. It's what it is if you take what I'm going to talk about on Wednesday is, if you take it out of context, if it's standalone, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's a coincidence. But when it's added in and it's added with context to everything else we already know, it's just more evidence heaped upon and more ties that need to be explored. That said, if you would like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. All right, let's hop into these articles. The first one is from the Daily Beast, and the headline is, Epstein-funded scientist George Church is creating a genetics-based dating app. Oh, that sounds like that'll be pleasant. That's going to be lovely. I'm sure everybody has their pen and paper out getting ready to jot down this idea, right? Yeah, where can I sign up for this? Bah. It sounds like what is this, farmers only type of deal? I mean, what in the world? Harvard biologist George Church already had to apologize for palling around with Jeffrey Epstein, even after the financier pleaded guilty to preying on minors a decade ago. Okay, so another one right off the bat. Even after Epstein was convicted, he took his money, he hung out with him, he palled around with him, and he knew that Jeffrey Epstein abused these girls. So, what do we call that, folks? That's an enabler. Now he's raising eyebrows again with plans for a genetics-based dating app. That just sounds gross to me. Genetics-based dating app. That sounds like something the Nazis would be involved in. Sounds like something those sick bastards would have been involved in. Genetics and eugenics and, godly, just gross. Why would anyone want to be involved in that? Just let nature take its course, all right? I don't understand these like weird scientists, like these guys in China, the scientists who just they spliced like a pig and like I don't know, a mouse or whatever the hell it was. It was weird though. I don't understand any of that stuff. Maybe I'm just, maybe it's something I'm not meant to understand, because Lord knows there's a lot of stuff I don't understand. And that's certainly this whole eugenics thing and the craze for eugenics and genetics and the whole like human modifying thing is just weird to me. In an interview with 60 Minutes, Church said his technology would pair people based on the propensity of their genes when combined in children to eliminate hereditary diseases. Oh boy. Yikes. That sounds like eugenics, Fordham adjunct ethics professor and science journalist Elizabeth Yuko, who studies bioethics, told the Daily Beast on Monday. That's what I just said. It sounds the same to me, and I am certainly not a scientist or a science journalist. That's by any means. I'm, just a regular average guy, but that certainly sounded like eugenics to me, and that stuff is creepy. You want to go down a rabbit hole, do some research on eugenics. The tech and science news site Gizmodo called Church's idea an app only eugenicists could love. Whoa, wow, that sounds great. Yuko compared the app, as described, to the Nazi goal of cultivating a master race. I thought we realized after World War II that we weren't going to be doing that stuff, she said. Yeah, I think we probably learned a few lessons from World War II, or we should have. And, eugenics is probably one of those things that we shouldn't be messing with. And that's my personal opinion, but I could always be swayed. Like I always say, I follow the evidence. I'm sure there are some scientific uses for it as well. Of course there are, if you can, predict disease and stuff like that, then okay, great. It's maybe a further look is warranted. But from just, the taste I have of it in my mouth from the studying I've done of eugenics, it's creepy as hell. Church was part of a group of scientists with whom Epstein ingratiated himself via large donations, and Epstein helped bankroll his lab from 2005 to 2007. Church has admitted he repeatedly met and spoke with Epstein for years after the 2008 plea deal that landed him on the sex offender registry. So this guy, this scientist, is such an enabler, it's not even funny, right? So you're obviously a scumbag. If you're hanging out with him after the conviction, there's really no moral leg to stand on. Before he was convicted, at the very least, you could provide the optics of, look, I didn't know this guy wasn't convicted. How am I supposed to know what the hell he's doing? All right, well, you could at the very least have an argument that holds a little bit of water. But afterwards, after the guy was already part of a sex offender registry, etc., you're still hanging out with him? You, my friend, you're a scumbag. Epstein had a twisted take on genetics, hosting scientific conferences at which he expressed his desire to propagate his own genome by impregnating up to 20 women at a time at his New Mexico ranch, like cattle stock. There's some creepy shit going on at that ranch too. There is definitely some creepy stuff, and there is a whole story to be told in Stanley, where that Zorro Ranch is at. And after the first of the year, I'm putting it into play as we speak. I'm getting my ducks in a row. I'm going to be taking a few days and going down to Stanley and doing some groundwork and talking to people myself and getting some first-hand information as opposed to just, some hearsay. I want to talk to the people there and see what the hell was going on at that ranch, and if people saw anybody coming in and out who hasn't been reported in the news, that kind of stuff. Actual journalist work, journalism, we don't get much of that anymore. In the 60-minute interview, Church called his ties to Epstein unfortunate and added, "You don't always know your donors as well as you would like. Bro, he was already convicted, you dumb asshole. Excuse my French, but geez Louise, he was already convicted, and you were taking his money, you sicko. So don't tell me you didn't know him as well as you'd like, or there was no idea, nobody had any idea, how was I supposed to know, oh, poor me, blah, blah, blah." Yeah, right, you knew, you took his money, you enabled his abuse of those young girls, live with it. Because we're not going to let you forget it. You are on the radar, just like a bunch of the other sick academics we're going to get to eventually on this podcast. Because there's so much to get to, right? We want to get to the academics, but how could it's hard to deviate unless I do 5 episodes a day, because there's literally that much information. If I could literally do 5 episodes a day or 1 episode an hour for 8 hours a day, and we still couldn't cover all the ground we need to in this case. And that's not even hyperbole. That's legit, true story stuff right there. There is so much to cover in this case, and so many players in this case. And then you have the inner ring, the outer ring, all of this other stuff. And it's hard. There's no way that we can cover it in the little bit of time that we spend. So, as the story blooms more, I'm going to have to add more content. I'm going to have to add more shows, because that's the only way we're going to be able to follow this thing correctly. But much of the segment was devoted to Church's genetic engineering work at Harvard Medical School, including the app that would theoretically screen out potential mates with the wrong DNA. So that's going to go over well with the woke crowd, right? Yep, that's going to go over real well. So you're screening out DNA of mates, screening out the DNA of people who have the wrong DNA. What does that even mean? What is the wrong DNA? How do you even know just because your DNA, you're not compatible because of your DNA strands? This stuff is all foreign to me, folks. This is like some Michael Crichton Jurassic Park with humans type stuff. You wouldn't find out who you're not compatible with. You'll just find out who you are compatible with, Church said. All right, well, who's going to store the rest of the stuff? Who's storing that information? And who's going to have access to it? You have to ask that, right? Am I the only one that's sitting here wondering who the hell would have access to my genome pattern or whatever the hell these guys are mapping? I mean, bro, come on, really? What a joke. You're suggesting that if everyone has their genome sequenced and the correct matches are made, that all of the diseases could be eliminated. 60 Minutes Scott Pelley asked. Right. It's 7,000 diseases. It's about 5% of the population. It's about $1 trillion a year, worldwide, Church said. The geneticist didn't drop the app's name, Punnett Square anyone, or how far along it is in development. He also didn't respond for a request for comment. So why did he have this interview then? Is it because he's trying to get out in front of the Epstein stuff again? Because he still wants that money to come pouring in from other donors? If he has nothing to add, then why don't you just go shut up and play with your science project, Beaker? Add something to the conversation here. In the interview, Church acknowledged the drawbacks of genetic sorting. He suffers from dyslexia, attention deficit disorder, and narcolepsy, disorders that might render him an incompatible match to many. Oh, so he's going to make himself look human. Well, I have all of these problems, so that justifies me making this wacky-ass genetics app. Ah! If somebody had sequenced your genome some years ago, you might not have made the grade in some way, Pelley said. I mean, that's true, Church replied. I would hope that society sees the benefit of diversity, not just ancestral diversity, but in our abilities. There's no perfect person. Yuko said the selection criteria would be a sticking point for Church's app idea. It's not clear what conditions or diseases will be screened for. Who makes that list? What's undesirable, she said. That's classifying people into acceptable humans and others. So, I guess we'll be like we'll have like a caste system in America like they have in India. So it'd be the untouchables, etc., etc. If you vote one way or the other, you'll be untouchable, or your genomes won't match up. What is this real life? Hold on. Knock, knock, knock. Is this real life? Am I in honestly, when this CERN, the collider came on, did we get like blasted into a different reality and nobody told me and I'm just floating around and, just hanging out? Because that's certainly what it seems like to me. I don't even understand what's going on at this point. The whole world is screwy. It is just absolutely screwy. Absolutely screwy. And especially when those pop-ups jump up onto your screen and screw everything up and make noise. All right, so our next article is from Radar Online. And it is, well, I guess I'll tell you some more when it, the pop-up goes away. So it's one of these articles that looks relatively short, but the headline's pretty catchy. Top secret, inside Jeffrey Epstein's Orgy Island, summit with Stephen Hawking. Financier and sex offender sold scientific secrets to Israeli military. Huh. Well, I wonder who said that. I might have been saying that for quite some time. And I don't think it's just the Israelis, folks. I don't think that, as powerful as the Mossad is, I don't think they're running that kind of operation on American soil without the okay of the CIA. The CIA is not going to let another dog eat in their yard without them getting a bite. Are you kidding me? This blackmail evidence, this is worth its weight in gold, folks. Imagine you have the goods on these dudes messing around with kids and girls that are underage and sex trafficking victims. You could have these dudes making literally wrapped around your finger on multiple continents, making public decision and swaying it in your favor to enrich you and to make your handlers happy. I don't know if that makes you comfortable, but that certainly doesn't make me comfortable, folks. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just the most horrifying sexual predator the world has ever known, and Orgy Island wasn't just a perverted playground for his high-powered friends. A new book reveals that mad scientist Epstein hosted leaders of the science world, only to turn around and spill their secrets to the Mossad. All right, this is reading like a tabloid, but it's Radar Online. And you know what? In a world where everything seems make-believe, who the hell knows about anything anymore? I have to be honest with you, like I said, I don't think it's just the Mossad. I'm not going to just single the Mossad out, even though they're one of the top intelligence agencies in the world. But let's be honest, the CIA is the big dog, especially in America. None of this is happening without the CIA knowing. And I don't mean the rank and file agent. This isn't like something they're sitting around and they're talking about. Hey, Jim, did you catch that latest episode of Game of Thrones? Man, I really can't believe what happened with Jon Snow. Oh, and by the way, do you know that the Mossad's running a blackmail operation in America? I don't believe that that's occurring. But the higher ups, of course, I guarantee whoever's assigned to this sector knows exactly what's going on. And not only knows what's going on, but is involved. Do I have evidence of that? I do not. That is my opinion. And like I said, that is where the evidence has led me thus far. Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales, reveals for the first time shocking details about Epstein's connection to the global academic and scientific elite. When I first started this podcast, I was talking about people like this, the academics, and a lot of people weren't really interested in it. But we're going to swivel back and we're going to pivot back because it's a crucial part of the story. You know, it's a very important part of this story because these people not only do they lend credence to Jeffrey Epstein as a person, but these people were working on some of the most high-profile projects that had to do with national security. Who were they feeding that information to? Did he have information on them from their trysts with these young ladies at his island or his residence? And then did he use that to blackmail them into giving him information, which in turn he passed on to his handlers in foreign intelligence? Because like I said, just because I think the Mossad was working with the CIA in the regard of the CIA knew what was going on, don't think the Mossad wasn't running their own little, well, they ain't going to worry about their own little skim operation like in Casino. Authors Dylan Howard, Melissa Cronin, and James Robertson found that in 2006, Epstein hosted a conference at the Ritz-Carlton on St. Thomas, which attracted the likes of Stephen Hawking. This is factual for sure. I know that occurred. I've reported on this as well. I've seen the evidence of this. I've seen all the statements of the people that were there, et cetera, et cetera. This definitely occurred. During one night of the conference, guests were shuttled over to Little St. James, aka Orgy Island, for a barbecue and submarine tour. According to reports, the sub was custom fitted for Hawking's wheelchair. A photo of the event shows him being personally attended by a young blonde with her hair in a ponytail. So I've seen those pictures before. And do I think Stephen Hawking was involved in any sort of sex trafficking? No. Like I've said a million times, just because people were in this man's atmosphere or at his party, that doesn't automatically make you guilty. And if that's the case, then if that's the level that you're going to use of evidence, then there's a whole black book of people that we could go through, and you need to be just as critical of them as you would be of, say, Stephen Hawking. Now, would I say the same if Stephen Hawking was there and he was credibly accused by one of these girls of abuse? No, of course not. But just being at one of these summits alone is not enough for us to paint you as a sex abuser. Now, the argument can be made that if you were around him after 2008, forget the argument being made. The argument has been made. If you've been around him after 2008, well, you're an enabler for sure at that point, because you knew what he was, you knew what he did, you knew what he liked, and you still spent your time with him. So yeah, you're an enabler. Despite the tech luminaries who visited Little St. James, however, it was never really the hub of Epstein's scientific pursuits. Instead, Epstein cultivated scientific connections at his 10,000-acre Zorro Ranch outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Our important people were mostly scientists. Deirdre Stratton, the woman tasked with recruiting young massage therapists for Epstein in New Mexico, revealed in Epstein's Dead Men Tell No Tales. Jeffrey helped back their research. He would often have, like the guy that won the Nobel Prize for discovering the quark in quantum physics. She continued, a guy that won the Nobel Prize for a DNA discovery. People that helped to found Microsoft. Those were the kind of people that were there. Scientific and brilliant. They would have very deep conversations over meals. You would pick up a word here and there. Obviously, you couldn't really hear the whole thing, Stratton said. They would invite them to lunch, and Ghislaine would have this tablet, and she would write down the facts, and they would tell them. At one point, she told me, well, you get the information from an expert, and then you get rid of them. Wow. You get the information from an expert, and then you get rid of them. That definitely sounds like Ghislaine Maxwell. As an agent of the Mossad, Epstein shared highly sensitive scientific developments with the Israeli government. For more chilling details on his ring of international espionage, pick up Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales now. Well, I highly suggest everybody picks up that book. I just ordered my copy. Mine should be here next couple of days. Like I said, I'm going camping tomorrow, so it might even arrive tomorrow. So when I get home on Wednesday, I might be able to just dive right in and see what's what. Yeah, so that's a pretty telling article, right? That's definitely the strand we've been pulling. We've been down this road. This is something that we've discussed here for a very long time, and I know that the audience is hip to that from the emails. We're pretty much... I don't think I haven't received one email of people, of someone saying that they don't believe the intelligence angle. And that just shows you the distrust that all of us in the Western world have with these agencies. And they do nothing to help build any trust within the public. They just continue to erode the trust that they have. And it's pretty sad to see, right? So... I don't know. I really don't know what to say. All I can tell you is I've been following the evidence, and this is exactly where the evidence has brought me. The blackmail ring, the Jeffrey Epstein being run by intelligence, and most importantly, though, the most important part is the whole entire cover-up. It's the sickest part of the whole entire thing that all of these people knew, and nobody has done squat. Nobody has done un gats. Nada. Nothing. But now, the pushback is on. Not just here on this podcast, but now you have people writing books like this, people probing a lot deeper. And I'm telling you folks, in this new year, we're going to probe a lot deeper as well. We are just getting started here, folks. 2020 is going to be a big year for the podcast because this story isn't going anywhere, so therefore I'm not going anywhere. I will not be pivoting away from this story. This is the only story that I'm covering right now. I'm not covering anything else. I could care less about the election. I could care less about the impeachment trials. I couldn't care less about any of it. I could not care less about any of that stuff at all. All I'm focused on right now is this Jeffrey Epstein trial, this Jeffrey Epstein case, and seeing that justice is served for once. For once, these elites must serve justice. So that's what we're doing. We're turning predators into prey. All right, folks, I will be back tomorrow morning with a daily drop. And then, even though I'm camping tomorrow night in a place with no service, I'm going to make sure that I hike out to a little spot where I get a little bit of service, and I'll drop the usual daily drop as well from the Valley of Fire State Park. How about that? That's how dedicated I am to the show. Even in the middle of nowhere, the middle of the desert, I'm going to make sure that I'm bringing some knowledge, bringing some information, making sure we follow this case until the very end. All right, everybody, I hope you guys all have a great night. If you want to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com, BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you would like to support the show, you can find the GoFundMe link in the description box.